to this annual general meeting of the Orkney Archaeological Society 2023. A particular warm welcome to you if you're joining us from outside of Orkney. I'm looking out my window here in the parish of Harry in Orkney. I'm seeing a bright evening. There's a smear of rain over the island of Hoy in the distance. I've got the World Heritage Site lying underneath me with the Ness of Brodgar covered up, waiting for exciting times to come this year. And just through the mist of the rain, I can see the Ring of Brodgar. It's getting to that time of year where the days are getting longer, and it's hard to believe that we're almost within 4 weeks of the longest day of the year. How time passes. But wherever you're joining us from, welcome to tonight's meeting. Can I ask you, please, if you haven't done so, to mute your microphone? I know sometimes we forget to do that, and if you do forget, then Hayley Green, our secretary, will do it for you. But if you haven't done so and you remember, please mute it just now. And occasionally people come in the course of the meeting and they forget to mute. And we hear all sorts of interesting things that are coming from the privacy of one's own house. But let's move on. The agenda for tonight's meeting is on the website, as are the other items that are on the papers that are required for tonight's meeting. You won't require to look at any of these things in the course of the meeting. Either myself as the chair will tell you about them, or the person that's introducing the paper will speak to it. If you wish, though, if you wish to see the papers, you'll find them on the Archaeological Society website. So the second item tonight is apologies. Now, we've got over 500 members, and some of them have very conscientiously given their apologies for tonight. But we're not going to recite the apologies. What we'll do is we'll put the apologies that we've received on the minute of tonight's meeting. So apologies that have been received, they will be recorded. We're going to go on to item 3 of tonight's agenda, and that is the minutes of the AGM of last year, of 2022. For those of you that have them open in front of you or have read them, I would be happy at this stage to take any corrections to those minutes, any matters of accuracy that anyone would like to raise. Anyone have any questions of accuracy? Are we happy that that minute that we have there on the website, 26th of May 2022, is an accurate account of what took place? Okay. Are there any matters arising from that won't be overtaken in the course of tonight's meeting that anyone would like to raise? I'm not seeing any indication or hearing any indication. Thank you very much for that. Are we happy then to accept that minute and to move on to the next item on the agenda? Super. Let's go on then. Item number 4 on the agenda is the chair's report, and that falls to me to give that. Well, what can I say? We've had a very busy year. We've continued to emerge from under the dark cloud of the COVID pandemic, but also we have recognised a particular silver lining that COVID had. And that is the ability for us to reach out and be in communication with and hear from many more of our members than we would have been able to do in the past. And so the work of the Archaeological Society has continued over the past 12 months in a blended fashion. So we have had a mixture of online meetings. Last year's AGM was online. This year's is online. And we think that is going to be a continuing convention with us. But we've also had in-person talks. Back in June of last year, we had Nick Card, the director of the Ness of Brodgar excavation, speaking to a very well attended meeting in Orkney Theatre in June of last year. We had, most recently, we had a speaker from the John Ray Society talking through some recent archaeological investigations of the Hall of Clestrain, the childhood home of John Ray, probably one of Orkney's favourite sons, I would say, the 19th century explorer. And in person, we had a walk to the Ring of Buchan through the ancient Neolithic landscape. That was back in April. And that was an absolute fascinating experience. To walk through a landscape in the hands and through the eyes of an experienced archaeologist brings that landscape to life, and it was fascinating for those people who attended it. So we continue with that blend of in-person field expeditions and online talks. We had the Viking Festival. Raggy Loshland and Colleen Beatty ably worked their magic again last year. It was in September of last year, over a period of 10 days or so, a mixture of fascinating, not just talks, but activities, recreations of what Norse life would have been like at the time of the earldom, and lots of fun things to do. We had our Brooktoberfest. Circumstances caused it to be a little bit truncated, and we kept it to one day. But the talk that we had was very well attended. That was in October the 22nd. During the active excavations at the Ness of Brodgar, we had our shop with our paid worker there in the months of July and early August. That was raising funds for the Ness Dig and for the Archaeological Society. The St Magnus Graffiti project that we've reported on each year for 2 years now, this is the third year we're reporting on it, just really goes from strength to strength. The 5,000 copies of the leaflet that we produced went very quickly, and we commissioned another 5,000. And there are talks underway just now, led mostly by our Secretary Hayley Green, to look at a phase 2 of the project. And for those of you who take the Current Archaeology magazine, you'll have seen there was a very interesting article by the editor of that magazine, Carly Hiltz, on the work of the graffiti project. Our annual review has just been published. This is a labour of love. George Vickers is the person who loves that labour, and he got it through the press, and it's out. It'll probably be in the hands of most of our members now, because it is it comes free with the membership, but it also sells in various outlets round Orkney and beyond. And really, if you want to keep up to date with what is happening on the ground in Orkney archaeology, then our annual review is indispensable for that. Many thanks to George for all his hard work in doing that. Lastly, the other thing I want to mention is a legacy heritage project that we are undertaking. The board has had some discussions how we might carry that forward. It's really to find ways of exploring and presenting significant archaeology historically and currently that's been going on in Orkney. And our plans are to make a series of short films that will help record that. Over the past couple of years, we've had some very generous bequests, and it is our intention to use some of the money that has come from these bequests to fund our legacy heritage projects. And there'll be more to hear about that in the coming year. That's really all I've got to say just now, except to thank our workers. That is the trustees and the board who keep the work of the Archaeological Society going from year to year. They're almost all here tonight. I also want to thank our volunteers who work in the nesting and other events that we carry out in the course of the year, and also to the people who speak at our meetings, whether it's an online meeting. We've got a very exciting talk coming up later on from Kath Page, one of our committee members. But whether it's an online meeting or an in-person talk, or indeed an archaeologist leading a field walk, thank you very much to these people for the work that they've put in the past year, and we look forward to your contributions in the coming year. That's the Chair's report, folks. We move on to the next item, which is item number 5, the Secretary's report. I'm conscious I've wittered on for quite a long time, Hayley. My apologies for that, and I hope I haven't covered items that you were hoping to cover, Hayley. But over to you, Hayley Green, our Secretary.
Thank you very much, David, and welcome everybody. And can I just say, as you were going through your report there, I was crossing things off mine, so I'm actually probably not left with a huge amount to say. But what I thought that I would do is just take us through, and again, as David says, we've got a lot of this online on the web page on our website, so that you can kind of refer to it. But what I've done is I've put up the draft trustees annual report that we are required to lodge every year with OSCA, who are our charity regulators, the Scottish charity regulator. So what I do in that as secretary is I kind of have to account, as we all do as trustees, for the role that we play within the organisation. So if I just take you through that quite briefly, and I'm very happy to take any questions at the end. So on the front page of the report, folks will see that we've got the list there of trustees and the dates that people were trustees for the board, including as well the sort of details itself about the charity. On the inside second page, we go through our constitution and our governing arrangements, and confirm that the last time we reviewed our constitution was in 2018, and that was actually when we set ourselves up as the SCIO, which is the new arrangements that we have in terms of our governance. That constitution is agreed by OSCA, and they're very happy with it. We have no reason to make any changes. But every year at the board, we do in the run up to the AGM, we do sort of review that. Underneath that, we have our charitable purposes, which have remained the same again for a number of years. But again, as a board, we do review those every year. We have a planning event, sort of usually in January or February. And one of the things we sort of check at that point is, are our objectives still appropriate as an organisation? And there you'll see that our main objectives are around education, so educating public meetings, fundraising activities which will support organisations and individuals working to advance understanding of Orkney archaeology and culture, organising, publicising, taking part in the supporting active archaeology projects focused in Orkney, and raising the profile of archaeology in Orkney, including through the publication, as David mentioned earlier, and as I saw Morag very kindly waving as a prop, our annual archaeology review. And I think this year may be our 8th review, sorry, which actually is some going when you think about the amount of information that we've printed over that time. And I do know that we always get really good feedback on that. So as David said, a huge thank you both to George as the editor, but also to everybody who writes articles for it, because people are very generous of giving their time when it gets to that point. In terms of the achievements of the organisation over the last 12 months, David has covered a lot of it. I'm not going to repeat that, but what I think I would say is there's two things that I think have been particularly good. The first one was the completion of the first phase of the St Magnus Graffiti project, and if you have got the draft report, you'll see that I make a slight comment there in the fact that Fran Flett-Hollenrake, who is the custodian at the cathedral and whose idea this project was in the very first instance, was actually asked to go and do a presentation on the project at a graffiti symposium in York in November last year, and the board agreed to fund Fran's sort of travel to go down to that. Unfortunately, due to weather in Edinburgh and the fact that the railway effectively was completely waterlogged and nothing was running down between Edinburgh and York, and no coaches were running, Fran very sadly got as far as Edinburgh and then had to turn around and come back and actually participated in the symposium online, which was a great shame. But I do know from speaking to Fran that one of the reasons that she was approached to speak in that symposium was because we were one of the very few projects, or societies if you like, that actually not only did a project but actually got out the publication at the end of the project in a relatively timely fashion. And our graffiti leaflet, which David has mentioned, is on its second print, and the first print was 5,000 when we're into the second print run of 5,000 as well. One of the things that we have done to avoid having to keep that as a printing cost, if you like, because it's a lovely leaflet and therefore it costs quite a bit of money to print, is through the help of Mark Newton, who is on the board and looks after our website. We've been able to put up links onto our website in PDF, and also through the cathedral there are QR codes, so that anybody who's got a QR reader on their phone can actually pull up the details of something that they're looking at there and then. So so we've kind of combined, if you like, latest technology and medieval graffiti in one project, and I think that was a real success. And like I say, very much recognised that it was a success because the project went right the way through to full completion of phase 1 with the publication. As David has said, we are talking about a possible phase 2 of the project, which will be likely going up into the upper bits of the cathedral, but because of the difficulty around access, we probably won't be able to have quite as many volunteers involved at that stage, but we'll be looking to have volunteers involved in recording and cataloguing. The only thing I'll just finish with then, if you like, is just to say, as David said, it's more, I think, a trail for next year, is that we are very excited about our legacy project that we've been working on. And our first sort of professionally recorded video is going to be of Nick Card at the Ness of Brogger talk, the one that we have annually in the Orkney Theatre. And that is going to be a month today, or near enough a month today. It's actually going to be on June the 15th in the Orkney Theatre. As always, it's free to attend, and that is going to be professionally recorded for us and filmed, and we'll be popping that onto our website as a legacy project, and we'll be following that up with our next legacy talk in July, but we'll talk a little bit about more of that later. Members, and I'm hoping that many of you are members of the Society, will be aware of this from the emails that you get from our absolutely excellent and very proactive membership secretary, Anna, who is also on the call, and we'll be giving her an update shortly. So if you're not already a member, can I encourage you to join? You do get advance notice of events that are taking place, and there are a few member-only events that will be taking place, certainly one very significant member-only event taking place over the summer, which I'm afraid we'll only be able to share with members because of the restriction on numbers when we get to that point. So with that, I think that's all I've got in terms of a secretary's report, but I'm very happy to take any questions if there are any. No,
Thank you, Hayley. Any questions to Hayley on that report? Any questions on the items on the report? Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on to item number 6, which is the Treasurer's report and consideration of the annual accounts. And I want to hand over to Davy Campbell here. Davy is the independent external examiner of our accounts, and his services are retained by OAS, and he'll be presenting this report. Davy, over to you.
Thanks, David. I'll share my screen for 2 seconds. Is that coming up okay? Yeah. So we'll start by saying, obviously, just for people's awareness, this is obviously cash-based account because of you being a scale. So you'll see there's no accruals, there's no debtors, creditors, there's no stock movement. This is basically a mirror image of the transactions of your bank account for the year past. So hence, if there's any comparable or any variances, it's maybe down just to timing. But we'll go through this here. So obviously at the top here on the left hand side you've got the last year accounts, and on the right hand side you've got the comparable accounts to March 2022. Shop receipts, as you see, went up from 11,000 up to about 15. Again, that's probably down to a bit of the pre-COVID time of it. We're into kind of a more normality year, so hence why the increase in turnover there in the receipts. So that effectively has given us £7,000 of a surplus in relation to £3,500 the year before, down to mainly volume. Down to the general income side of things, you'll see membership income slightly down, but comparable. Fundraising has been in this year again. You guys haven't had the ability to fundraise against post-COVID. Book sales are slightly up. Grants donations, you'll see a large variance, but the main reason for that is a £10,000 single donation the year before, and a legacy of 57,000. So there's quite a large differences, but by clear magic, nearly £67,000 of difference is to that two items. So we'll go down to our general expenses. You'll see, I'll not go through this in detail, but you'll see effectively that £11,000 of general expenses is for both years. So again, in terms of normal trading and normal expenses, it's quite comparable there. There's a bit of project cost in this year and a little bit higher printing goods the year before. So effectively, the general surplus for that period is under £1,000 to 68 the year before. But again, that two material items are kind of outliers from that. You've got grants this year. You'll see the year before you gave out about £5,000 of grants. This year, £2,500. And then we get down to the restricted income that you guys have to spend on specific purposes, down to donations or funding. You'll see there's a slight movement there. There's £35 being spent on an income on the cairns and £300 spent on it. So down to the actual main areas here. Nessa Broadcast Trust, again, very comparable. Both receipts about £15,000 mark, and again, about £13,000 to £14,000 in terms of the cost of goods sold. So effectively, your year is £5,000 of a surplus. Last year was £67,000 of a surplus. But if you take out that two items from last year, if you want to be comparable about it, last year was break-even position. This year was effectively a £5,000 surplus. So we go down to the restricted funds element. You'll see your open balance of cash was 102,000. You've got £5,000 of surplus. So effectively, 108,000 is your closing balance. The good news is that the majority of that's unrestricted. And I think David alluded to at the start that you've got some plans for some of that. So that will potentially be designated funds for you guys to put into your projects. And there's been small movement on the cairns. That's slightly been spent. You'll see the Adrian Challenge and the student prize is still at the same it was before, so no movement. But I would probably like to say in this climate we have, and again, like David said, you're in a fortunate position for having that legacy and donations. You've got a very healthy bank balance for your activity level, and happy to take any high level questions. I'm sure you've got members here that can give you some more detail, but a very healthy position at the end of March 2023.
Super. Thank you very much for that very lucid narrative on our accounts, Davy. And as you say, we have a very healthy position. It's not been a traditional position. We've never been in crisis or in financial danger, but we now find that we have a fair amount of leeway due to the generosity of the bequests that we've had. And as Hayley said, we're considering how we can be deploying some of these resources for the coming year. Can I invite any questions to Davy on any aspect of the report he has given us on our finances and our accounts? I'm not hearing or seeing of anything, Davy, so I think we can finish this item. Thanks again, Davy. You feature in the next item, Davy, so don't go anywhere, please, because item number 7 is appointment of the independent examiner of the accounts, and I'll pass over to Hayley for this.
Thank you, David. So we are required under our constitution, and also to kind of comply with what OSCR require, that we have an independent verifier of our accounts. We have historically for a number of years used Voluntary Action Orkney, and Davy is employed by Voluntary Action Orkney to carry out that role for us. And we're very satisfied with the work that we get from Voluntary Action Orkney for doing that. And I would like to nominate Voluntary Action Orkney again to carry out the independent examination of the accounts.
Thank you, Hayley. Can I have a seconder for that? Anna Gudge is seconding. Kath and Mark, we have a flurry of seconders for it. So I think I mentioned Anna first, so we'll record it as being Anna seconding. Is there any other nominations for that post? Again, I'm not seeing or hearing any, so we will confirm that Voluntary Action Orkney be our preferred filler of that post. And my assumption would be, Davey, it'll be yourself carrying that out in the coming year. Would that be correct?
That'll be correct, yes.
Super, great. Thanks for that, Davey. And thank you for that, Hayley, in introducing that item there. Let's move on to the next one, which is the Membership Secretary's report. This will be given by Anna Gudge. Anna is our Membership Secretary, and she's probably the person that you hear from and see of most in your connections with the Archaeological Society, which is very good because Anna has got a way of writing emails to people that makes you feel that you wish you were in the same room as her when she's enthusing about what Orkney Archaeological Society has to offer us. Anna, over to you for the membership report.
Yeah, I've got the camera on. Yes. Yes, hello and good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. I've got a very simple report. I posted it online with some attached statistics, because everybody likes a few statistics. At the time I wrote it, we had 514 members. Since then, sadly, I heard of one who died, but we've had some new members, so we've now got 518 members, which is brilliant. We've had very few resignations during the year, which I think just shows that people really enjoy learning about Orkney archaeology, what we do here, what goes on up here. We seem to be a very exciting hub for archaeology, and that's great. We were very pleased that despite the increase of postage and printing and everything, we were able to retain our current membership fee structure, but still send out our annual review free of charge to members. I think most of you will probably have got it by now, although some going overseas may not yet have reached their destinations. Can't do much about that, I'm afraid. But at least it's not earlier in the year when the post office decided we weren't allowed to send anything overseas for a while. I'd like to thank many of you for your responses to the emails I send out. I do try not to batter you with them, but it's always a pleasure to hear back from you and to sort of introduce myself to the members in that way. So I look forward to another year with hopefully even more members joining us and appreciating this fantastic archaeology that we have here in Orkney. So tell your friends about this. Make sure they know that we're here. We'd love to see them. And the Ness is only open for another year after this. You've got to give them a chance to come and see it. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them. I'm not promising, but I will try.
Thank you very much, Anna. And let's extend that invitation for questions. Does anybody like to ask anything of Anna's membership report? Again, I'm not seeing or hearing of any, so thank you for your report, Anna.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And we will move on to the next item, which is the election or the re-election of our Board of Trustees. Back to you, Hayley, for this item, if I may.
Okay, thank you very much, David. So again, I've popped this up onto the website. So as we said at the beginning, I think as David said, we currently have 13 trustees. We actually started off the year after last year's AGM with 14, and one of the trustees resigned partway through the year because of personal circumstances. So our current list of trustees, and I'll just read them out so you've got them, are David Drever, Moira Parker, myself, Hayley Green, George Vickers, Anna Gudge, Mark Newton, Kath Page, Julie Cassidy, Colin Richardson, Raggy Liosland, Kayla Shepherd, Kevin Kerr and Colleen Beatty. All of the trustees have indicated their willingness to stand again. Our constitution allows us to have up to 15 trustees. So if all of the existing trustees are re-elected by the AGM, that leaves us with 2 current vacancies. What I would suggest, if anybody is interested in joining the board, probably the easiest thing to do would be to have a word with me out with the meeting. And I can drop my email in the chat for anybody who wants to get in touch if you don't have it. And you'd be more than welcome to come along and sit in on a board meeting just to get a sense of what we discuss and how we kind of conduct our business. We're very friendly and we do love to have new members. We are mainly meeting by Zoom or by Teams, usually by Zoom, but we are quite keen where we can to meet in person at least a couple of times a year, and probably have more in-person board meetings going forward into this year coming up. We do have a break over the summer, so we meet in June and then we go into a break and then sort of reconvene in September. So there is a short break over the summer. And as I mentioned earlier, we do tend to have an in-person planning event, usually on a January or a February morning, to kind of plan our ahead for the year and a sort of like a 4 or 5 year sort of forward look as to what we want to do. So with the 13 members that I read out, and unless anybody has any objections, I'd like to nominate them as a list. And obviously very happy if anybody has got any comments on that. And now, like I said, I'll put my email in the chat, so if anybody is interested in finding out more, by all means do get in touch.
Thank you very much, Hayley. Any comments or observations on the nominations that Hayley has just made? Effectively, it's the reappointment of the existing board, with Hayley giving the proviso to anyone who would like to serve on the board the coming year to indicate informally to her and have a chat with her after the meeting. But in the meantime, are we happy to accept these 13 names that Hayley has just read out to you? Again, I'm not hearing or seeing any indications on that. I'm assuming your silence is not indifference, folks. I'm sure it isn't. In fact, I'm seeing thumbs up appearing in various places, which is all good. So we're happy then to accept the existing 13 members for the board for the coming year. And as I have just said, there is 2 more spaces if anyone would like to volunteer their services. Hayley would be very pleased to hear from you. Okay, let's move on. We're almost finished the formal part of tonight's meeting. Item 9 is resolutions. There have been none submitted. Item 10 is any other competent AGM business that hasn't been covered already in tonight's meeting. Is there anything else, folks? Again, I'm not hearing or seeing anything. And that brings us to the end of the formal part of tonight's meeting. It isn't the most exciting part of tonight's meeting, but it's a vitally important and essential part. And in terms of good governance, we need to ensure that all the things that we have gone through tonight are kept in the forefront of our minds. So thank you to those who have contributed to the formal part of the meeting. We'll put that behind us and we will move on to